introduce, my name is Salomo Hay. I had the difficult task of announcing the winner. But firstly, on behalf of the panel, we really want to thank the participating institutions in terms of how you have prepared and how you have actually put your best foot forward. Now, in terms of what we looked at, obviously, there are certain things that is critical for you to, there are certain things that are critical for students to understand before they practice to become economists. And it's key that some of the concepts are understood clearly, and I think some of the teams couldn't necessarily put that in a very clear and crisp manner. So when we were scoring, we were looking at how well do the teams understand the topics. So for instance, price stability. How well does the team understand price stability? How does price stability find its route into the Bank of Namibia? And then how does that then contribute to recession? There were some very good answers, especially from one of the teams that spoke about the short-term effects of price stability, which means that you then have to use the monetary policy, which means that you'll have to increase interest rates, and subsequently you will have certain impacts on the economy. We also wanted to look at the context. How are the teams able to put the price stability components and the MPC tool, how it's utilized within the Namibian context and how the Bank of Namibia uses that. There was an interesting comment from one of the teams that use trade economics as a source for data. Again, we want to make sure that when you speak about statistics, you need to use the official sources. And maybe just a quick explanation, Ricardo, with your permission. So there's what we refer to as the impossible trinity. Now, the impossible trinity means that you either have to utilize two of the tools that exist, which is either the free movement of capital or the fixed exchange rate. The other one is what the other team was hinting on so strongly, which speaks to the autonomy of the monetary policy. So you can't have both, all three of them, you can only have two. So in Namibia, we have the fixed exchange rate and the free movement of capital. So again, it's important for you to understand this concept when you prepare and you put your foot forward for the next debate. What we also looked at is proposals. Were there new ideas? Because we understand that young people are at the cutting edge of innovation. So there was a consideration. We hope that perhaps the next conversation in the final will bring new ideas that we can look at going forward. Now, with that said, having considered those three underlying components as how we score the teams, on a quick guess, can I please have who's the winner? Who are the people? Thank you. So the winner on the first debate, which was between Charleston College and UNAM, is the University of Namibia. The second team to advance to the final between IUA and NUST is NUST.
Thank you, thank you. So now it's time for us to do the coin toss. So heads, of course, will go for government. We're choosing heads or tails. Yes, all right. Heads. Well, it means that heads is government. Congratulations. That's King NUST will be taking government again. Round of applause for them. We will give the teams exactly 6 minutes to prepare for their positions, and then we'll start with the final for the 2013 Tertiary Institutions Debating Challenge. Thank you. I'll repeat the motion again. This House believes that Namibia is ready and should get on board and join the rest of the world in dealing in virtual assets. Of course, the context is that virtual currencies have revolutionized the way we prepare and handle money. They offer many potential benefits, including greater speed and efficiency in making payments, transfers, and ultimately, of course, promoting financial solutions. But at this stage, the Bank of Namibia does not support the use of crypto assets, including cryptocurrencies, stable coins, and CBDCs as well. Hence the motion for the final, which is this House believes that Namibia is ready and should get on board and join the rest of the world in dealing in virtual assets. Please welcome the Prime Minister from the Namibia University of Science and Technology, first speaker, Vincent Shibolo. Please welcome the second speaker, the Deputy Prime Minister from the Namibia University of Science and Technology, Mr. Emmanuel Twitter, Honorable Vincent Shibolo.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for allowing me back onto this podium. It's a very engaging and interesting debate, and thank you for the energy from the crowd. As the Prime Minister of House Government, we believe that Namibia is ready and should be dealing with virtual assets. But before I go into the debate, it's very important that we put up our definitions to characterize the debate so that we don't mix and match our arguments. What is a digital currency, first of all? It's a broad concept for all monetary assets that are in digital form. These monetary assets, they can be regulated or unregulated. They can be centralized or decentralized, account-based or token-based. What is a virtual asset? A virtual asset is a digital representation of value that can be digitally traded, transferred, and can be used as a mode of payment for investment purpose. Cryptocurrencies are examples, for example, Bitcoin. What is a central banking digital currency? Central banking digital currency is issued by a central bank or digital form of fiat currency issued by the central bank. Why does House Government believe that Namibia should be ready to join the rest of the world with virtual assets? What I want to say first is that we are exclusively suggesting CBDCs. Therefore, if House opposition brings any other virtual assets outside of the debate, we don't agree with that. We agree with CBDCs. Why do we agree with CBDCs? It's because CBDCs are backed by the Bank of Namibia, the main stakeholder in this debate. What is the justification of bringing about a central banking digital currency within the Namibian context? It increases the digitization of the economy and consumers. As young people, we all know what the fourth industrial revolution is. We are entering the digital era. As much as we're trying to industrialize our economy and our production bases, we all know that the economies are modernizing into the digital and into the technological era. And as young people, we all have, I can even see a young man there with a laptop. Who knows if he's also dealing with crypto? As young people, that's one of the biggest trends. The young demographic, the macroeconomic volatility that we're facing, that's pushing us towards that digital age. So what we are trying to do is go from a combustion engine, from the Rubble, and we want to go to a Tesla. Yes, we know. Not taken. Another justification is to anticipate a future role for the Bank of Namibia as an active facilitator in the digital economy. Why should the rest of the world move on and the Bank of Namibia is not taking an active approach? In order for us, yes.
You limited your definition of a virtual asset to only CBDCs. Why are you limiting to only the one virtual asset that doesn't really exist in practical use and not others?
Can you repeat?
Your definition of a virtual asset, you said you only want to include as CBDCs, central banking distributed coins, right?
Yes.
Which don't exist in theory. Only practical, no country ever has it. So why are you trying to limit one?
Okay, you can stop there. Okay, you can stop there because I'm a bit flustered that he's saying that they don't exist. For example, we have the Bank of Ghana, the ECD. We have, which is in a pilot program. We have Nigeria that have already launched the e-Naira. And there are many, I can give many examples, but the rest of the world are already implementing CBDCs. Why should we go with CBDCs? Why is it? Because they're backed by the central bank. And because they're backed by the central bank, the trust and the credibility is there in banking, in finance. What we need to sell to the public is trust, is credibility. What other crypto is decentralized. You have NFTs that were going up and down. You have guys like Logan Paul who are selling virtual assets, crypto zoo, and we all know what happened to those people. We have FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried. How many people? 8 billion US dollars was defrauded from the American public. So if people know that we have an established, distinguished institution such as the Bank of Namibia regulating these assets, people can be able to trust, people can be able to see the credibility when it comes to trading and when it comes to monetary transactions from a CBD perspective. And also a CBDC, because it's backed by the central bank, it's ensuring that that form of the digital form of fiat currency is rejected. The digital form of fiat currency is taking up the functions of money, a unit of account, legal tender, a medium of exchange, and a store of value. In fact, right now, the Bank of Namibia is already trying to paint the digital landscape. They have put up a financial task force. They have a technical committee between Bonn and Nampisa to develop prudential licensing and regulatory frameworks for virtual assets and virtual asset providers. In fact, the Bank of Namibia had an innovation hub with virtual asset service providers, a survey where Bonn is trying to see if they can bring virtual assets and virtual asset providers through financial technology framework, through a phased and structured manner. So, we are trying to make sure that there is a human-centered approach because we know that people have been dealing with Bitcoin. For example, El Salvador, when they established Bitcoin as legal tender, a year later, what happened to the Bitcoin? It crashed by 60%, and that affected the people. But what we want to do is to bring in the Bank of Namibia and to try and encourage the Bank of Namibia to say that, look, the rest of the world is doing it like this. We have Ghana, we have Nigeria, and they have pilot programs, and they have examples, and the Bank of Namibia is doing that because we understand the benefits that CBDCs can bring forth to the Namibian economy. And I yield my time.
Move on swiftly and invite the leader of the opposition, Honorable Densley Ibandulwa, to come and open up the arguments for the opposition. Round of applause.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we start off today's debate, it is very important that we clarify certain keywords within the motion and point out the fact that it's a proposition has a certain definitional challenge that I feel like they should have it. Not definitional challenge, but definitional issue within the manner in which it shows to structure their case. And I'll point this out as I go. Firstly, I feel like the case presented by proposition is a bit disingenuous in the sense that it constrains the debate so much that it's not discussing the true facts of what we should be talking about. It's the same as, for example, let me say this house believes that a murderer is wrong. You're saying, no, I don't believe that the murderer as a human is wrong, but I believe that the murderer as someone who killed someone else is wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, I feel like constraining a definition that much, especially within a debate that wants to talk about virtual assets in its entirety, is something that's particularly problematic and something that we should not shy away from. But with that said, ladies and gentlemen, we also don't disagree in the fact that they might maybe want to come up and say all kinds of virtual assets, because even in the motion itself, it said virtual assets, not virtual asset, and it requires you to speak about more than just CBDCs. Now, what do we define a virtual asset as? Now, before that, I just want to define what a virtual asset is and what we feel like it is and what is true, what we feel like is most true to this debate. What a virtual asset is, it is a currency that does not occupy digital form, so that does not occupy physical form. So that is to say, when you have a Namibian dollar and it's digitalized, Namibian digital dollar that stays in the bank and that you're able to withdraw from the ATM is a traditional method in which you interact with the bank and interact with everyone else. We feel like virtual assets, and the reason why they're specifically different is because they don't occupy a physical form. So that is to say, when you have things like Bitcoins, they don't provide a physical form in which you are able to trade for those crypto assets. And that's the reason why virtual assets are specifically interesting. But then David in the hallway was telling me a few things about virtual assets and why they are specifically different from the traditional banking system. David told me that the thing with virtual assets is that the rule of money is that it's speculative in the sense that you can speculate its value over time. You can transition with it, you can transact with it in the sense that you can exchange money for another good, and you can also it's also precautionary in the sense that you can save money and stuff like that. The only thing and the only characteristic that virtual assets have is that it's speculative. You don't need a virtual asset in the senses of transacting, in the purpose of precautionary measures, but just simply because it's speculative within its nature. But firstly, ladies and gentlemen, let me go to the true crux of exactly why virtual assets are particularly problematic in today's debate. With the motion given to us, it says that virtual assets are they're efficient in transacting, and they are easily efficient, and they are also fast to transact with. We have to understand, and this is something that you guys really have to address when you come up. The reason why that exists within virtual assets is simply because the rules and measures and regulations in acquiring a virtual asset is much lower than the traditional way. So that is to say, when you have money in a bank, the bank knows exactly who you are. You know, and when you have money in virtual currencies, the various sort of virtual currencies which they have to observe other virtual assets, they don't require that level of validation. Now, the reason why that's really problematic within every side of the house, ladies and gentlemen, is also one of the reasons why other countries haven't yet adopted things like virtual assets, and even CBDCs are things, as much as the Bank of Namibia is looking into them, are things that they are approaching with caution. It's simply because it doesn't provide any other value apart from it being speculative in the sense that people want to gain more from that virtual asset. But also, let's look at the reason why the motion says it's efficient in transacting. The reason why it says it's efficient in transacting is because virtual assets in most instances are only beneficial when you're trying to avoid things such as taxes, when you're trying to avoid things such as taxes and being taxed on your money. Because essentially, when you're saying it's faster in transacting, the only reason, but there's no, throughout the years, it's been faster to transact with money with the development of technology. The fact that I'm able to send you an e-wallet within 1 minute, you don't complain about it because it's fast enough. The only reason people within virtual currencies are advocating for it is because of the lower requirement for validation in which to acquire virtual assets in the is far lower. That is also the reason why when people hack into famous people's accounts on Twitter and they were saying send money to this account, to this crypto asset account. The reason why they chose the crypto asset account is because it's much harder because of the blockchain for you to identify that specific kind of individual, and therefore you can get away with hacking in a billionaire's Twitter account and telling you to send money directly to your account. But if I had to do that with an FNB account and say send money to Densley Padula at FNB branch, John Maynard Street, whatever, it's much because of the level of validation that requires. We feel like the only benefit that really does come from virtual assets, really, in its truest sense, is for people that do want to evade taxes and do want to do fraud. In that instance, I'll take you now.
Do you concede to the fact that CBDCs are immune to most of the risk you've brought forth?
CBDCs are not something that they are not something that's currently in action. It's not. It's a work in progress. That's also the reason when China launched their first CBDC pilot, when they handed it out to 120 million people, they still stuck to WeChat, which is traditional in the sense that people are actually able to transact with their current they still stuck with WeChat in the sense that people are still able to transact with their local currencies, with the only benefit that you are actually able to do it the same way you would with e-wallets and all of that stuff. They haven't adopted CBDCs in the sense of we're going to launch it because it's so efficient, and it's not something that exists. That's why I'm saying let's not debate things that are virtual in the mind, let's debate things that are currently happening. But also, ladies and gentlemen, the reason why we can't, in a world, adopt things like virtual currencies is because of the tax implications. The moment you're not able to tax people for their transaction, for what they do, for their transition, for their business that they do online, is the moment that you're going to disenfranchise the most vulnerable people. So that is to say, the person in Havana who essentially needs money from your business ventures through tax is unable to get that tax simply because virtual currencies are so anonymous that you are unable to tax individuals, and that it's so anonymous that individuals can send thousands and millions of funds without the need of verification. Those are the things that they need to tackle on their side of the house. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, I raise my hand.
Ladies and gentlemen, the tone has been set for the final. Thank you very much to the leader of opposition. We now call on the deputy leader, the deputy prime minister, deputy head of government, Mr. Emmanuel Tuya from NUST.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I'm back once again, Emmanuel Tuya, deputy prime minister of the government bench. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it becomes extremely, not particularly, but extremely problematic when you have a side opposition that completely ignores the definition that was given by our Prime Minister within today's debate, ladies and gentlemen. Our Prime Minister, when he was defining virtual currencies, explicitly expressed that virtual currencies is a broad term, right, in which he included stuff like crypto, CBDC, and etc., right? Now, our framework, right, not definition, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Speaker, our framework strictly focuses on the introduction of CBDC within Namibia, ladies and gentlemen. So we are not necessarily saying that other digital currencies do not exist or other virtual assets do not exist, like they're trying to claim, and completely blindside the definition that was given. We are saying that we as Namibia, we are going to be, or as the Bank of Namibia, we are going to be implementing CBDCs, ladies and gentlemen, which I'll get to later into my case. Now, starting with my rebuttals, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, before that, sir.
I'll take you later on, sir. You can hold your POI. Firstly, they come up and they tell us that we are trying to consider the debate which I've already addressed. It's not possible because we already gave you our framework which strictly focuses on CBDCs, ladies and gentlemen. They also talk about how it's disingenuous, ladies and gentlemen. But we feel like it's not disingenuous because the Bank of Namibia, which is the central bank, a bank that is backed by the Constitution of Namibia and regulates the economic activities and the monetary policy of Namibia, is behind us, ladies and gentlemen. So we feel like that is not disingenuous within today's debate, ladies and gentlemen. They also talk about how CBDCs do not require verification, ladies and gentlemen. But if you are going to open a bank account, ladies and gentlemen, you need your ID, ladies and gentlemen, right? You need a digital, what is this? You need an address, right? So if you are going to be implementing something that is exactly the same, like we said in our definition, CBDC is just a digital form of fiat currency. How are you going to be expecting to be on a system if you are if your ID is not there, ladies and gentlemen? So if you like that on their side, it does not make sense within
Be right, sir.
ladies and gentlemen. They also They also came to claim that China was practicing with crypto CBDCs and how it might work out. But for a matter of correction, sir, China is in a pilot project, not necessarily actively practicing CBDCs, right? Now, getting to what my Prime Minister said, ladies and gentlemen, our Prime Minister came up here and he explicitly spoke about how the fourth industrial revolution is in course, right? It's in motion, right? So who are we, or how is it? Here's our burden of proof. How is it justified for side opposition to be sort of like delaying Namibia from industrialization, right? Because you cannot actively want to alienate a country from digitalizing, ladies and gentlemen. At some point in time, Namibia should be digital and should engage in virtual assets, right? Because we are not in the desert. We are a country that needs to evolve and evolution, ladies and gentlemen. Now, getting into my positive matter, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, yes, sir.
So, if this debate was exclusively on CBDCs, why wouldn't the central bank just say in trading in CBDCs? And
ladies and gentlemen, thank you, honorable speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, we said that we are not neglecting other types of virtual currencies. What we said was, we acknowledge that virtual currencies like Bitcoin, like Ethereum, like what have you, stable coins do exist in our Prime Minister's definition, right? So clearly they continue to ignore the fact that we are acknowledging that CBDCs and other virtual assets do exist, and they are explicitly focusing on why we are sticking to CBDCs, because they clearly did not research on CBDCs, ladies and gentlemen. The reason why we are explicitly focusing on CBDCs is because of safety, ladies and gentlemen. What do I mean by safety? Firstly, you have crypto assets, right? You have cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Ethereum, what have you. Bitcoin, because of the active usage of Bitcoin and stuff like that within Namibia, as it's already unregulated, we say that on a daily basis, countless people are continuing to be scammed. They are the volatility of cryptocurrency continues to be a hindrance, like within these people. You can be an investor investing in cryptocurrencies, and one morning you can have 50 billion in your crypto wallet, the next minute you are blown down to zero. That's the volatility of cryptocurrency, ladies and gentlemen. That they are solely trying to focus on within today's debate, ladies and gentlemen. So because of the dangerous risks associated to other types of virtual currency that they're talking about, like the crypto and whatnot, we decided to come up with CBDCs as a form of digital currency to implement within Namibia's financial system. The reason why we are saying CBDCs are generally safer is because, number one, it's a digital form of fiat currency, right? That is why they continue to know. It still has the same characteristics of money that our Prime Minister explicitly went through, ladies and gentlemen. It's a store of value, unit of account, what have you, right? So it's exactly the same, but only in digital form, right? So it's backed by the Central Bank of Namibia. And I doubt that the Central Bank of Namibia would recklessly try to implement something without doing proper research on it, right? Hence why we see pilot projects on the rise. South Africa, our neighbor, is currently in a pilot project on implementing CBDCs, right? Our other African countries like Nigeria successfully implemented the e-Naira, right? We do not hear Al Jazeera report on not taken, sir. We do not hear how Nigeria or Al Jazeera reports Nigeria CBDC crashed, right? We hear that the CBDC is working perfectly and it's perfectly functional in Nigeria, ladies and gentlemen. We have the Financial Action Task Force, ladies and gentlemen. We have the FinTech Regulatory Framework that is being executed by the Bank of Namibia and NAMFISA, ladies and gentlemen. So if you have such bodies that are regulating for financial or virtual financial activity, ladies and gentlemen, what is necessarily stopping Namibia from implementing CBDCs, ladies and gentlemen? If CBDCs are so safe, if CBDCs can have potential benefits such as financial inclusion, ladies and gentlemen, who's to say that we should not get on board? Like I've stated, ladies and gentlemen, we are not a desert, we are a country, ladies and gentlemen. We have a constitution, we have a central bank, ladies and gentlemen. We have a financial system or financial sector that needs to evolve, ladies and gentlemen. We cannot be left in the desert, ladies and gentlemen. And to quickly, before I get off the podium, to respond to the virtual currencies that you are so explicitly reminding us about, El Salvador, incorporated cryptocurrencies. Look what happened to El Salvador. It crashed. They rushed into it, it crashed. Here's why we are focusing on CBDCs that are explicitly safe.
Thank you very much, Mark. We thank the Deputy Prime Minister for closing off the opening of government. We now move over to the Deputy Leader of Opposition. Round of applause for Mr. Terenis Tanjeba.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me stand by the protocols that have already been observed. Our honorable member here just mentioned an example of the El Salvador crash. So the question remains, are we really ready? Ladies and gentlemen, what problems are we trying to solve with a virtual asset with reference to the Namibian context? The government here is giving us examples of other countries. So are we going to play monkey see, monkey do? In addressing the motion itself, we must recognize that it's problematic to blindly follow the global trend of embracing virtual assets without thoroughly evaluating social economic context of Namibia. Yes. Each country's circumstances are unique, and what works for one nation may not necessarily work for us. It is crucial that we do not tether ourselves to destructive worldwide in pursuit of short-term gains, but rather prioritize the long-term stability and sustainability development of our country.
POI Speaker.
Moreover, it is essential to consider risks associated with virtual assets such as money laundering, cybercrime, and terrorist financing. The anonymity nature of transactions and the lack of oversight make them attractive tool for illicit activities. Namibia must prioritize the safety and integrity of our financial system and ensure robust regulatory frameworks are in place before rushing into embracing a technology that may impose significant risks.
POI.
Ladies and gentlemen, Namibia is currently being investigated by the International Financial Action Task Force for money laundering. Are we ready to implement this new technology that will just bring us more heat in the country?
POI.
They argue that embracing virtual assets will address the problem of limited access of traditional services. However, it is important to note that virtual assets, in their case CBDs, are highly volatile and speculative in nature. The lack of oversight and inherent risks associated with these assets can potentially expose vulnerable individuals and investors to significant financial losses. Therefore, relying solely on virtual assets, CBDs, may aggravate the existing challenges faced by a marginalized population rather than addressing them. The government suggests that embracing virtual assets will create job opportunities. While it is maybe true that blockchain technology has the potential to streamline certain processes and facilitate crowdfunding. We must recognize that Namibia's economic landscape is diverse and requires a multi-phased approach. Solely relying on crypto assets neglects other viable economic sectors that could yield sustainable growth. Take it POI.
Do CBDCs use blockchain technology?
Ladies and gentlemen, yes. But let me take you back to the motion here. The question is Namibia ready and should get on board and join the rest of the world in dealing with virtual assets? It has nothing to do specifically with CBDs and so on. We are referring to all of them as a why. Ladies and gentlemen, with that said, I'm done.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for us now to get to the second half of the debate. We're closing. I just want to remind the House and, of course, our audience of the motion that's being debated. This House believes that Namibia is ready and should get on board and join the rest of the world in dealing in virtual assets. That's the motion, just a reminder for you as well. We now move over to open up the closing arguments, starting off with the member of government, third speaker. Please give a warm round of applause to Mr. Benson.
Hello everyone, I already stand on the protocols observed. My name is Benson Temo. I am the member of government and I will be continuing to defend my case and rebut the opposition's case. I feel like our side opposition has completely disregarded what the Honorable Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister has said throughout the debate. We have recognized that yes, we are talking about virtual assets and CBDCs are a virtual asset. We do consider the fact that other virtual assets may pose risk to the Namibian financial sector, but we are not considering those assets. We are considering assets such as CBDCs that have more gains that the Namibian financial sector could benefit of than negatives, right? But even if we do consider their case, let's talk about what the Honorable Deputy Leader of Opposition has thought within his case, right? He has said that Namibia is currently being investigated for money laundering, but he didn't tell exactly how or who is investigating Namibia and what these charges are, what regulatory body is there to make these investigations, and how necessarily that affects the implementation of CBDCs in Namibia. Second of all, he brought up the fact that virtual assets have high volatility. Yes, some of them do, like Bitcoin, NFTs. However, CBDCs do not have that risk, right? So why should we even take into accountability the fact that some virtual assets have high volatility, while CBDCs do not necessarily have this high volatility, right? Several. He talked about how implementing virtual assets may exacerbate marginalization, but he did not necessarily analyze what kind of marginalization we're talking about, what are the people that are being marginalized, and how implementing these virtual assets will further marginalize these people. These are just some questions that we want side opposition to answer within their speech, right? Third of all, he did also say that implementing virtual assets also ignore other financial sectors that could potentially grow. But then again, he didn't say which financial sectors are those, which sectors are the ones that are supposedly going to grow, what is the metric that they're using for this growth, and how CBDCs again affect this growth. So he posed a couple of challenges that do not necessarily have anything to do with CBDCs. He said he did pose many challenges, but then again, these challenges do not necessarily apply to what our case is trying to talk within today's debate, right? To move on into my argument, I do consider the fact that yes, we are talking about virtual assets. However, CBDC is also a virtual asset, and it is the Bank of Namibia's mandate to consider all of these effects. And the only virtual asset, however, that the Bank of Namibia can necessarily
can necessarily regulate and implement policies around its CBDCs because, come on, it is the Central Bank of Namibia.
Yeah, sir. Why don't you also implement stable coins? There are centralized stable coins that you can also implement. Why didn't you choose those?
Within today's debate, we are talking about the role of the central bank. The role of the central bank in the financial sector. So, stablecoins do not have anything to do with the central bank. So, why would we consider them? We should consider virtual assets that the central bank can control, right? Such as CBDCs once again. Now, into my argument as to why we should really consider CBDCs, right? First of all, it facilitates cross-border payments such as remittances and other commercial international money transfers. There are three problems with status quo, right? International money transfers have to go through international money operators such as MoneyGram and Visa and PayPal. And this IMTOs, international money transfer operators, have transaction fees within their money transfers. So whenever you want to make a cross-border payment, there would be transfer fees over these payments that you're trying to make. However, if we do implement CBDCs, this transaction fees wouldn't necessarily be there. Therefore, it would improve the cost effectiveness of cross-border payments. More into that, these international money transfer operators make this transaction fee so high, up to 8.7% according to the World Bank, because they are trying to make a profit off of your cross-border payments. However, central banks do not operate under the premise of making a profit. Therefore, they wouldn't need to make this transaction fees so high that you wouldn't even be able to afford cross-border payments, right? Third of all, the speed of these payments. With status quo, the speed of these payments to clear up can take up to 5 days because they have to go through this third-party international money transfer operators. However, when we do implement CBDCs and when countries collaborate to make sure that their CBDC is not taken, to make sure that their CBDCs can work together, it would remove the need to have this IMTOs process these payments. Therefore, these payments wouldn't even take up to 5 days as it takes in status quo, right? Third of all, it is the ease of doing it. The ease that comes with implementing CBDCs and bypassing IMTOs, right? These payments that are made using IMTOs may not necessarily be the easiest to do, the cheapest to do, and the fastest to do. However, if we do move into considering CBDCs to make these cross-border payments as banks in the world, such as central banks in the G20. I'm not saying that we are the G20 or we are in the exact same capability that the G20 has, but I'm do saying that we should look up to them since the economies are thriving. Why wouldn't we want our economies to thrive, and why wouldn't we want to follow the example of countries with thriving economies, right? This is why. Not taken. This is why I believe that CBDC should be implemented in Namibia, and that the Central Bank of Namibia should look into implementing a CBDC for Namibians. One, current status quo is not cost effective, it's very expensive to do. The speed of payments is not the fastest, and it's not the easiest process to do. However, when we implement CBDCs, we mitigate all of these problems. The payments become cheaper to make, they become faster to make, and they simply become easier to make. And with that, I'm proud to propose.
Thank you very much to the member of government, of course, opening up the closing arguments for government. We now move over to the opposition to open up for the closing arguments for opposition. Please leave a warm round of applause to Mr.
Today's debate is not on how wonderful CBDCs are, they're brown or yellow. Today's debate is is Namibia ready, and should they implement laws that allow to clear virtual assets? CBDCs could be the best thing on earth, but that's not what we're here for. I think it's a paid promo. This debate is basically questioning, should Namibia change their policies? To change any policy, you have to ask yourself three things. One, is there a need to change the policy? Do we need virtual assets in this country? We have the Namibian payment system had a clearing house and established to clear our own payments in Namibia that make payments instant. When you log into your app and you want to send money, you can literally choose instant pay So why do we need these faster digital assets things if we already have instant pay in this country? We don't need virtual assets. The debate again focuses on two words. Are we ready? The Communications Regulatory Authority of Namibia puts our internet accessibility rate at 60%. That means only 60% of Namibians can even log on to Google. How can we now have virtual money and all these things if Namibians can't afford to even Google things? We have communities in this country that will not be accessible. We are creating policies that are exclusive, which is very dangerous. It's a very dangerous path to go down to. Then one by one, they came on stage and they kept saying we ignored their definitions. Yes, we ignore definition. One, it's nonsensical. Two, we're not here to debate about CBDCs and virtual assets and all those things. We're here to debate on is it needed? Are we ready? And should we do it? There are the second speaker came here and spoke about the authentic sandbox agreement with Visa and Bank of Namibia. That sandbox agreement goes for all fintechs, right? That means even insurance stakes and all other things. Not just, no, please sit down or stay seated. That goes for all fintechs and all things. Not CBDs or crypto, they don't expect you to say it for cryptos. So try to enable it to fit your narrative is kind of sad. Namibia is currently under investigation, as my second speaker said, for our poor financial laws. It's been in the newspapers where certain politicians of the league were rushing laws. It just happened a few weeks ago. We're rushing laws to get this passed. The world knows it down. The world already sees us as pure as our country's laws on financial sectors are not strong enough. I also said that. So how can we now want to bring on more things that we don't even understand? Virtual assets, cryptography, all these things are not even taught in computer software or computer science courses at universities. How are we going to can we care about how Namibians play a role in the economy of bringing these things if Namibians are not equipped with this no sit down? How are Namibians equipped to play a role in these things? Are we simply going to say, okay, let's allow CBDCs and China or Nigeria must now have a CBDC in this country? Also, to clarify, the CBDC is basically a crypto coin but issued by government. That's the only difference. Because it's central banking digital coin, the central bank is yes for the blockchain, yes it will follow other rules, yes it will follow everything else. The only difference is because there's an Namibian badge, we're supposed to think it's okay. They mentioned Nigeria as the Naira, they mentioned China with their policies, no sit down. They mentioned Nigeria, they mentioned China with these policies. First of all, Nigeria is one of their currency is depreciating, one of the highest in the continent. Is that really the model to follow? Yeah. Their countries that is literally losing value as we're speaking right now. To the point where the point of information, the Naira free falling and so forth. They have to adopt various mechanisms to save the Naira. And that's the currency we want to follow. On that point, speaker? No. Again, you mentioned China with their systems and whatever. China is currently fighting the economic stress that they've never fought in the whole existence of China. China was known as a global powerhouse. China's youth unemployment is skyrocketing. For the first time, China's growth was at 3%. China used to average at 8%. And now they're just doing a mere 3%. Is this really the country to afford? Don't sit down. Also, their whole argument, although their whole argument is not relevant to this debate, they're assuming that CBDCs already exist. One, every single CBDC mentioned, and they keep mentioning himself, it's pilot speaker. Theory. It's whatever. I can just have a pilot in my house. It doesn't mean it's real. One of the most surprising arguments is said, they mentioned the word virtual assets and safety in one sentence. Every single scam I know about today, somewhere, somehow, leads to a virtual asset. I have never heard anyone say, no, I'll come to your house, give me $10 and give me a scam. No, it's always send money to this account, get rich quick, open an account on this website. Every single scam that exists in the 21st century is on virtual platforms. POI speaker. The third speaker came here and he said no stable coins are not, it's the Bank of the Best role to to have stable or to have coins or whatever. And they say that stable coins should not from that category. A stable coin literally just means you fix one currency to another currency by digitally. Maybe in case that doesn't maybe make sense to you then. Right now we have fixed the Namibian dollar to a South African rand. That is literally a stable currency. A stable coin will do the exact same thing digitally. Right? I have arguments to even motivate on this both sides, but yet again, we're not here to debate about that. We're here to debate is Namibia ready and should they implement that. You guys all came here one by one, told us about CBDCs, told us about what, but is there a need for this policy? I said no. Africa is known to be the highest unbanked societies in the world. We have people in Namibia today who don't even know what the FNB bank account looks like, or what a deposit looks like. Why do you think those ATMs that only deposit money are only in cities? Go to a village or go to the rural towns or smaller towns in northern Namibia, wherever, and look for ATM that deposit money. I'll tell you now, you won't find one. We have problems in our financial sector that we have to solve. No, sit down. I'll take the red military one later. Namibia, if you look at our financial system, it's not broad enough. That's why we only have the M1, which is your narrow money by the way, and your M2, which includes my other long-term monies. We don't even have the M3 in this country, simply because of the fact where we are right now is stable enough. Why do you want to bring problems and solve? Why do you want to bring solutions to problems that don't exist? So, honorable judges, I want to ask you, please, please let them win. If you can honestly say the answer that we need this currency, and we should, and the answer that we are ready. Because from what I've been saying, they have not achieved any of those things.
Before you take your seat, you need to respond to at least one point of information.
Can you link the failure of the Chinese economy or the failure of the Nigerian economy to the implementation of CBDCs?
Yes. So the Nigerian situation, they released the INAIRA 2020, end of 2021, right? And Nigeria had a fixed exchange system, which was what relied mostly on their oil products. They didn't fix to another currency, but they fixed to their trade and they had high reserves due to their oil thing.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. May the House get in order, please. We're calling on the government whip to come and close their arguments for this debate. Please give a warm round of applause to Showdown Analysis.
Good afternoon to my esteemed panel of judges and to the audience at large. My name is Sharika Novasis and I am the government whip. Is Namibia ready? Yes, the Bank of Namibia is already laying down extensive technical grounds in order to ensure that we are able to carry out the implementation of CBDCs. Should we get on board? Giving one a role to participate in the digital economy of economic growth and development is not a bad thing. They haven't told us why us partaking in the fourth industrial revolution is a bad thing. Why us involving with the rest of the world is a bad thing. They simply say that we should not do it, but they do not give us any benefit as to why Namibia being left behind by the rest of the world is going to benefit us and be a good thing. And then, to move on to their leader of opposition. My Prime Minister clearly defined what virtual currencies are, what digital currencies are, and set a framework and set perimeters that the virtual asset that we are interested in implementing within Namibia is specifically CBDCs. And we gave reasons behind this. The leader of opposition then comes up and says that we are constraining the definition. We did not constrain the definition. We gave a very clear definition as to what a virtual currency is. We simply said that the one we are choosing to implement within Namibia, because we feel that this is the one that Namibia is ready to implement, are CBDCs. We never constrained any type of definition whatsoever. And therefore, that point, that rebuttal, whatever it may have been, is irrelevant. And then they said that CBDCs are unregulated. No, they said that virtual currencies are unregulated. Yes, we agree. Some virtual currencies are unregulated. That is why we are proposing that we introduce one which will be regulated by the Bank of Namibia, avoiding many of the risks that we brought up, such as like high volatility, such as the safety and so on and so forth. CBDCs do not allow for the anonymous nature of many other virtual currencies. Hence, you cannot bring that forth as an example of how money laundering and so on will suddenly increase, because everything you do with CBDCs and trading them can be traced back to you. It is simply a virtual fiat currency. You will not fall off the face of the earth if you are using a CBDC. We can trace it back to you. And then, I asked the speaker, do you concede the fact that CBDCs are not vulnerable to many of the risks brought forth? Mind you, that was a yes or no question, and he did not say neither yes or no. He simply went on to speak again about other virtual currencies while I specifically asked about CBDCs. And then he comes on and says that virtual currencies and so on and so forth are not taxable. CBDCs would act as a fiat currency. They would be the same as the Namibian dollar, have the same value. You cannot put tax on the currency of a country. You cannot have a $10 and put tax on that $10. So I do not understand the relevance of saying, do CBDCs take tax and so on and so forth. And then the deputy leader of opposition again spoke about how the anonymous and money laundering and so on and so forth would happen. These things cannot happen with CBDCs as they do not allow the environment in which these particular things can take place. They did say that Namibia is being investigated for money laundering and should be dragged more attention, but then the other speakers say that Namibia is being investigated for poor financial practices and so on and so forth, and this is showing a contradiction within their case. What is Namibia being investigated for? Who is investigating? When did this investigation start? What is the relevance of this investigation? They simply tell us that they're being investigated.
You said that the CBDC will be pegged to the Namibian currency. What you're referring to is a stable coin. Why specific? What's the difference between the CBDC and the e-wallet on your bank account?
E-wallets on your bank account have transactional costs that are much higher than those of a CBDC. Sending them requires money, withdrawing them would require money if you're having to request for credit and so on and so forth. Yes, they are both things that do not take a lot of time, but the transactional cost on a CBDC is less than that of the transactional cost for the virtual wallets that already exist within the current status quo. To move on, they also said again that CBDCs, specifically, he said CBDCs are highly volatile. This is not true as they are pegged to your currency. So unless your currency is highly volatile, a CBDC's value will not suddenly be changing in the bank. The same way you have $10,000 today, you won't check your bank tomorrow and it be $3,000. CBDCs are not susceptible to the volatility of other virtual currencies. They then said that CBDCs use blockchain technology. That is simply not true. I will not even engage with it. It is not true. The speaker came up here and blatantly lied to all of us. Then to move on, he then decided to repeat the motion for us to hear that it's virtual currencies. We are very aware that the motion read virtual currencies, and we are telling you that the virtual currency we believe can be implemented within Namibia is specifically a CBDC. We don't think that Namibia should have cryptocurrencies. Why would we want to implement something like a Bitcoin when, as my speaker said, it failed in El Salvador? They were sent into economic disarray. Why would we want to implement something that we know does not work when we do not have that risk with the CBDC? The member of opposition then said, the member of opposition then said that he's not here to debate virtual currencies. It is within the motion. We are here to debate that. He then said that my speaker did not give him reasons as to why we should be implementing this, when literally he was told that we should implement this because in the current status quo, transactions are slow and costly, and that will not be the case with CBDCs. To strengthen what my Prime Minister said, we prefer a CBDC over other virtual currencies because it would be backed by the bank. We also prefer this in order to allow the Bank of Namibia to participate in future economic activity because other countries are going to go ahead with this whether or not we join them. So why should we be left behind? I asked the whip speaker to come and tell us, why should Namibia be left behind? Why is it bad that transaction costs are lower? Why is it bad that people will be spending less time with it? Why are all the benefits of CBDC so bad that we should not consider them. They are proposing that we stay behind, that we stay technologically behind with the rest of the world. They are proposing that we continue to have these high transactional costs, and they are proposing that we continue to stay stagnant, but we are saying we should advance.
Thank you very much to Sharika for closing off the government. We now call on the fourth speaker and the whip for opposition.
All right, panel, we need to understand something, okay? In order for you to come with a polio antidote, you need to know there's polio, right? In order for you to know there is a remedy to something, and to bring it up, you need to identify what the problem is. They tell us we need to identify, to bring forth this thing called CBDCs, right? CBDCs is central bank digital currencies, yeah? It's a digital currency that will be operated and regulated by the central power, the Bank of Namibia in this particular regard. I have to recharacterize because clearly they don't know what they do. I'm an economics student, so I'll school you on this one, very clearly. So, the first thing we need to understand is why should the first question in order for us to know whether or not we're going to side with CBDCs is the efficacy and the necessity. The efficacy means, is it efficient for us to implement this? Who is it going to benefit? And the important question that this debate rounds about, is it necessary? Do we need it? Digital currencies and virtual currencies, according to their first speaker, is digital currencies is a fiat currency in the digital world. This can also be an e-wallet. So unless, and in their whole speech, they didn't put premise on what is already existent. If you tell me I need to put everything on a blockchain platform, and I'll show you why exactly, CBDCs are blockchain, except for now they are private ledgers. And the cryptocurrencies are public ledgers. Like I said, economics 101. But I also you need to understand that, right? Whenever you tell me that CBDCs is what we are advocating for, you need to tell me what is the value of this thing going to be. You need to understand how the Bank of Namibia, or the central bank of any country, operates. When we have printed money, okay, cash money, $100, $10, that one. When we have that, what the Bank of Namibia does is sells it to intermediary banks called the commercial banks. That's FNB, that's Banggood, that's Standard Bank. The moment you bring forth CBDCs, you immediately link out the intermediary banks like the Bank of FNB and Banggood. The problem with that is the central bank then cannot control the cash flow and has no sense of benefit. There is no incentive for the central bank to be there if it cannot sell some sense of value to commercial banks. Because commercial banks, what they do is they sell those particular money that they were sold to them to other parts of the society, like in loans and in mortgages. Now you already distributed, you're already disrupting the whole financial system as you know it to be. But so they tell us, okay, and this is a weak case, right? They tell us that no, we need CBDs because it's safer. Safer for who? What is the technological advancement in Namibia? We are barely registering all 2.5 million people for SIM cards. And we want to bring up virtual currencies. The second thing they tell us is faster. They tell us it takes 5 days. So clearly Benson is impatient to wait 5 days for his money to clear. But I tell you already, there is already an implementation of things like cell phone banking that is almost instant for you to receive. I'll take you a little later. Let me wrap up. And then it tells us it comes with ease. Ease for who? People barely understand the intricacies that comes with virtual currencies. And so putting it on some sort of blockchain, for who will understand? You barely understand economics as it is. They tell us that Nigeria is a great example, therefore we should implement it. Nigeria is the biggest economy on the continent and is the least effective, respectfully. And then they tell us that we should also implement it because China, a global giant, does it. Let me tell you the reason why China is doing it. I'll school you again. China wants to move away from the homogenic sense of currency of the US dollar. That is the reason why they are moving. Not because it's cheaper, not because it's safer. And the moment that you compare China to a US instance such as Namibia, you're already losing the debate by far. So, They tell us the reason why they want CBDCs is to involve the Bank of Namibia. This comes out in his speech. That's a useless point. The Bank of Namibia already regulates it, all the things that are already established. The moment you lost this debate from the get-go, the moment you didn't tell us why exactly the traditional methods are viable, and the moment that you want to complexify things, I'll take you in a minute, let me finish. Then they tell us there is some sense of ready, they are ready because there's regulatory framework. You must understand when CBDCs are involved, right? This really means Namibia's virtual currency, as much as it's controlled by the Bank of Namibia, I'm still transacting with people across borders, right? This really means the legal framework is actually obscure. The moment I send money to someone in Russia, who is going to police me? Where does my jurisdiction as Bank of Namibia, as Namibia as an entity end? The jurisdiction is not clear, right? And that already puts us in a detrimental state. We don't necessarily see the legal framework and the regulatory framework. You should have listened attentively. Is the idea that if I send an e-wallet and if I open a bank account, I can go to your house if you rob me. But in this sense, it's on a complex virtual, complex blockchain platform. And I don't necessarily know there is none. We need to understand that. As much as we can say that, yes, it is regulated by the Bank of Namibia, the question would still be, you lose the debate by showing us that it is not necessary. And because it's not necessary, it's a waste of Namibian resources. Why don't we just close the loopholes that are already there by the e-wallet system instead of bringing forth? I'll make your point quickly, wrap it up.
Do you concede to the fact that there are benefits that Namibia could get from this, and that the need for it comes because transactions are cost effective and it would ease cross-border payment?
That's what you don't understand. You already fight against how the money flows, right? I'll wrap it up in my 40 seconds. This is why I school you for the last time. When you implement something as the Bank of Namibia, you need, what is the incentive of the Bank of Namibia? When I send out CBDCs, I have to charge interest rates. There needs to be an incentive there. Otherwise, they're losing their own jobs. The moment you tell me the reason why cryptocurrencies are that is because it's decentralized. Centralized merely means it's supposed to bring forth something to the central power. What are we gaining if CBDs are done that, right? So in this case, we don't necessarily believe that CBDs are important and is efficient for any. They didn't even tell us who it's going to be efficient for, except for it's going to be cheaper, faster, and better, of which I've already shown you why in this case it's never possible.
I feel so sorry for my senior Namibian who've come and do the closing remarks, because the energy of this room seems like it's just peaking as we're coming to the close. But once again, let's really show appreciation for our speakers with a warm round of applause. And for now, thank you so much. On that note, can the speakers please step down and wait for us down there? Don't exit the venue. Please just sit down on your seats down. I think that I need to stay because we got one more surprise. Are you ready to hear it? Absolute silence is a great surprise. Are we getting absolute silence? After I say the name, I need you to get it as loud as possible. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage for the first time, performing for the Bank of Namibia Tertiary Institutions Debate Challenge. And